So, in the first episode of Creator Finance, we've got Damien Jordan, who is from the channel Damien Talks Money. He's got not only 185,000 subscribers, but his profile landed him an invite to number 10.
Pretty much 2 years to the day since I quit my full-time job to make YouTube videos.
What's so interesting about his story is that it wasn't all smooth sailing financially. He got himself into a ton of debt at university, which he had to work his way out of.
Nothing in my bank account at all points. You know, working like 60, 70 hour weeks to dig myself out of it.
When he decided to go full-time, he had to think about the prospect of stepping away from a six-figure salary, all while being a father and having a young son.
In this episode, he'll share all about his journey, his story on taking the leap to go full-time.
You kind of have a responsibility to become financially secure.
Yeah, you have a duty to.
He's really honest about balance and why that's really difficult to achieve at the start of the journey.
There was no balance. My family probably suffered. You know, my relationship with my son and my partner and things like that. But now I get to pull that back.
How he's using equity stakes to expand his creator business. His take on why creators need a long-term focus.
Think that trust is the product. Trust is the product. Like if you're an education creator, the trust in you is the thing that you're selling.
Or sometimes the biggest deals you get are the ones you need to walk away from.
Creator economy, you're gonna get big figure. I'm sure you've turned down big figure stuff from people you want to work with. This is a great conversation about strategy and tactics from what I think one of the very best creators in the game. So, Damien, let's take it back to the start of your YouTube journey. It's your second video, Investing for Beginners, and it's just gone viral. Walk me through how that felt and what happened next.
It didn't go viral straight away. It was kind of like a slow burner. So, you know, people will go back, look at the oldest video and go 500,000 views, and you kind of think that happened in a day. But actually, that video's just like steadily clocked views for 4 years. I remember it got 40 views on the first day, and I remember thinking that's probably not normal. You know, in the YouTube, I was prepared for it to take a year or so. But yeah, I remember getting like a Chinese bot comment and thinking it was real. You know, oh, you're so sexy. That's what it said, and I was like, hey, loving this game already. But yeah, it was just a Chinese bot. But yeah, I was so in the weeds of it, like already of just like, right, what's the next video? Got to keep throwing it on. That it didn't really resonate. It wasn't until the January where it blew up. You know, 2,500 views a day, which was a lot then for me. Now I'm not so much, but at that point, that was like, oh my God, this is going crazy, and that was all GameStop and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was a bit around your community, especially when the Carol stuff started kicking off, where there was a genuine sense of community around your channel. And at what point when you were doing all this did you think, right, this might be something that I can take and maybe go full time with?
I thought I'm a bit hot, so if I'm sweating, I'm sorry for the guests. I might take my jacket off in a second. I sprinted to get here.
I'm not a Chinese bot, mate.
No, yeah, got to be hot under the collar.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't serious from the start. You know, I'm like in my 30s. I don't have that much time. No one has time to waste. But you know, when I was 18, I could probably spend a whole summer on RuneScape doing nothing and not be that bothered. I don't have that luxury at my age now. So I thought I could make it a success. I didn't think it'd be as quick as it was. After that summer, when after that January period, so I had about 8 to 12,000 subscribers. I was like, this is it now. I clocked out of work mentally at that point. Carried on for another year there, but wasn't really there.
And how because from memory, you were working basically almost a six-figure sales job at that point.
Yeah.
When you said you clocked out mentally, but when you were dealing with that, you know, is there a point where you were going back and forth in your mind about whether this was going to be the path, or was it really clear in your mind that you're just going to go, right, come hell or high water, I'm going to make this work as much as I can?
It was definitely a back and forwards. It's hard to quit something that's good, and I had a very good sales job. I was at the point in sales where it was more account management, and really I was just answering the phone. So it was like, you know, good money for not that taxing of work. But it just didn't feel very fulfilling. And the upside potential on YouTube was higher. And I'd never really taken a big risk. And I thought, you know, you got one in you at least. So let's just go for it. I was doing both things badly by the end.
Yeah.
My job and the YouTube channel, and one was going to give, and I wasn't going to let it be the YouTube channel, because I just thought, if I waste this, I'll just for the rest of my life regret it.
Yes, it's one thing that I really remember about your videos, because I remember you did them pretty much weekly consistently.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew, I think you mentioned one of the videos that you're working full time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this guy must be gunning for it as far as you must be like getting home. Because the one thing that was also really noticeable from your videos is that they were getting better week on week, whether it was kind of the jokes, the storytelling, the editing. And I was doing videos a little bit after you, but not that much after you. And I remember thinking, you must be working some serious hours.
Yeah.
What was it like? Like, what was an average week when you were kind of trying to make that transition to working full time to being a full time creator?
COVID helped, because lockdown allowed me to be at home and like work all the time. But yeah, when I was back in the office, it was like 3 days a week in the office, plus, you know, it was a 40, 50 hour job, hour a week job. The same on the channel probably. And then I've got my own son who lives an hour drive from me, so I was visiting him every week, plus like my missus and her son. I was going to bed at like 2, waking up at 6 for a few months, and just like hammering it out. But like I'm probably good at that kind of stuff, you know, like digging deep. I was watching that thing about Tom Brady the other day on Disney. It's called In the Arena, which is like a great poem, The Man in the Arena.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but like he was talking about how because he was the 6th draft pick, so he was one of the last players to be picked up, and they never thought he would be any good, and he was always like, people around me were always more talented than I was. I would just outwork them, and I'm a bit like that, I guess, just obsessively outwork people.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the big kind of myths in the creator economy, especially for those that tend to go full time, is that, you know, I think from an outsider perspective, a lot of people think, oh yeah, you just post videos and then that's it, and then, you know, when Lambo, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't see that from the people that make real moves in the creator economy. I almost see a psychopathic level of work that goes on underneath.
Yeah.
Like, how did you manage when you were kind of doing that and doing like the 80-hour work weeks, trying to manage your son, trying to manage that transition? How did you manage your own mental position with that? Because that must have been stressful as hell.
I didn't. I was like falling apart at the seams, but it's kind of like, what other alternative did I really have? It was like an opportunity, and I thought you just grab it and go for it. And I saw a lot of people check out at that time that were more successful than me, that were bigger than me, that were the leaders in the space at the time, and then they all kind of fell off for one reason or another. And I was just like, give me the ball and I'll run with it. You know, I'm not gonna just outwork everyone. I mean, there was no balance. My family probably suffered. You know, my relationship with my son and my partner and things like that. But now I get to pull that back on the other side of it now that I'm full time. But that was one of the risks, the relationship risk and things like this. But, you know, people want to start a business and have a side hustle and have work-life balance. I think that you get to that over time. And I think there's a period where you kind of need to be all in and work like an absolute dog to get it off the ground, to get it into orbit, if you will.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a guy I follow called Scott Galloway, and he kind of talks about sort of the myth of balance. And he says basically, you know, the people who talk about balance, a lot of them are already successful. Mm-hmm. And then they like to underplay balance because they've got balance now.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it's possible. If you're kind of getting something from 0 to 1, you need almost superhuman levels of effort to get there, unless you're really privileged or you've just got some innate advantages. You know, you're amazing looking, or you're incredibly talented.
Yeah.
How did you prepare yourself financially for making that transition?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm always okay financially in the basis that I run a personal finance channel that's based off, you know, my own personal finances. So I got myself to a position where I had a stocks and shares ISA that was well padded, and you know, I've got pensions and things like this. But there's never really a point where you can kind of make the leap and be comfortable. You know, you're throwing away $100,000 a year. You know, I was earning good money from the channel. I was earning that from the my full-time job. I knew at the moment I left that my income would more than halve. And then the day I left, Putin invaded Ukraine, and ad rates collapsed globally, which meant that my income from the channel quartered. So, you know, I lost 80% of my income in a day, but I don't know. The next day, I then got a credit card out with 0% and bought 10 grand's worth of camera gear. So I was like, let's just go. Let's just go. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't condone people buying a credit card, but, you know, what I meant is it's interest-free cash to me. And knew I could pay it back. I've got the money there.
I'm going to make a short out of
Yeah. I never really say it because people are, you know, I shouldn't sit there and go, oh, use a credit card. But if I'm buying a 10 grand expense, I'm putting it on an Amex and then getting the points and balance transferring and all of this stuff, you know? But yeah, you can't ever be prepared for that. You just kind of got to leap and realise that nothing's ever killed me yet. So that kind of thing won't.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when you just kind of talking tactically, when you did it all, you know, is there a point that you decided to set up limited? You know, did you get accountancy support or did you stay self-employed throughout it all?
I was a sole trader for the first couple of years. And then I went a limited after 12 months of being full-time employed, which would be about 2 and a bit years into the channel, if the channel's in its 4th year now, roughly. So I've been limited. I've been limited for about 18 months-ish, 18 months to 2 years. Right. I've done one set of accounts, like paid. I'm doing my second. So I think it's 2 to 3 years. So you lose track of time.
Yeah,
I've got no idea. You can tell me I've been doing this 10 years and I'll be like, oh crap, really? Yeah.
Those expenses aren't right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I went limited after that, and then VAT registered, which is, lovely.
Yeah, lovely part of the journey. No two ways about it.
Yeah.
And actually, just because we're talking sort of in the weeds now about sort of finance and stuff, I know that you set up Financial Interest Limited.
Yeah.
It's been on Company's House.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the thinking about that and getting that set up as a separate limited? You know, what's the kind of thought behind that?
So I got to a point where, I could make YouTube videos and I know that I could earn a bit of money from them. And it's kind of like a hamster wheel of if you ever get off it, it stops pretty quick and it dies. You can't sell it because there's key man risk, as in I'm the key man. If I leave, the channel dies. You can maybe sell a portion to an investor, but the argument then is the creator's kind of checked out. You know, why if they sell 50%, are they going to be 100% into it still?
Sure.
I thought there was opportunity within the website and blog space and newsletter space, but I wasn't naive enough to think that I could just spin that up and be great at it. You know, people come to me about YouTube and go, oh, have you got any tips for a new YouTuber? It's like, yeah, make 100 videos and then come and talk to me. So I wasn't thinking, oh, you can just do that easily. So I got someone that I know, Luke, who I know runs blogs and websites and has done them semi-successfully before. And I said, like, I'll bring the audience, you build it. I work with him every day on it. But, the technical SEO, the titles and thumbnails, the gut stuff that, that I know about YouTube that he knows about that side. I mean, for want of a rubbish term, it's almost like social venture capital. Trying to make that stick like Fetch and Mean Girls. I'm not, but what I mean is I invest my audience, if that makes sense. I would rather have half of something than a whole load of nothing.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of creators drown under their desire to own 100% of everything, whereas I see it as a lot more valuable to get people on board that have a skill set and go, I'll partner with you and we'll build it better together. Better product for the client, I call them the client, the viewer. Better product for the person consuming the content in whatever format that is, and a better outcome for me in terms of high-skilled individual, that produces something that's better than I could. So that's why it's a separate limited company. The same with the podcast.
Nice. So you're basically, you've got kind of the main source of revenue through the channel, but ultimately you've got this sort of equity part, which is the next step, really, where you're looking to build financial interest. Does that have any a connection apart from kind of a sort of connected way to obviously your personality, your audience, and all the rest of it? How do you see that in relation to sort of Damien Talks Money Industries, so to speak? You've got the channel, you've got affiliates, I think, is your biggest revenue source right
Yeah,
now?
so the affiliates are the biggest revenue source. So there's DTM, the main channel,
Yep.
which is like mine. I'll always own that. It's kind of like my pension in a way.
Yeah.
And then under that is my editor, and my mom works for DTM. And then we've got financial interest, which is me and Luke. We have a couple of other people. So we've started a YouTube channel on that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't promote it because my view is that I want it to get off the ground itself.
Yeah.
You know, so that it stands alone in its own presence in the algorithm, rather than me artificially boosting it, because the content's very different. So DTM can't produce how to set up a Vanguard SIP. Like, that kind of content just won't fly anymore on my channel. The audience is too broad, and that content is the really valuable stuff that actually moves the needle for people.
Yeah.
They ask for it all the time, but I just know that I'd be thrown into into nothing on the main channel. It would get buried. So instead, use financial interest to build those kind of like how-to instructional, really stripped back videos that are search focused. So they just rank in search. So we put out one every 3 days. We've put 2 out so far. It's not even me talking on them. It's a paid actor, if you will.
Oh, really?
Fergie. His name's
Okay.
Ferg, yeah. But yeah, so he's not a paid actor. He's just a guy we know. But yeah, we call him, he's a good lad.
And
called
just get
Ferg.
paid.
Yeah. He does get paid. But he's called Ferg. So yeah, financial interest is the newsletter, the blog, and the newsletter is like I use the main channel to build that through lead magnets,
Right.
you would say, which are the worksheets that I produce.
Which are really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers.
really good.
Yeah.
I've downloaded them.
Yeah.
No, I have. I was just, I thought they were really good, man.
Yeah, well, a lot of time goes into that kind of stuff, and
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
trying to improve them over time. But all we're trying to do is teach people to fish. We're
100%.
not trying to and this whole thing of, oh, you can't give advice and this, and I get that from the regulators, but they don't even show people how to use the things that they're in, and we shouldn't have to have those conversations. The pension providers at the workplace should be like, these are our funds, and these are the ones that are the most popular, and this is what they do in layman's terms, So that produced, we got 28,000 people on
That's really good.
Yeah, in like 3 months.
I was going to say, you've only been doing it for a couple of months, haven't you?
Yeah. So the email newsletter is quite big. And then we didn't really want to do like a weekly news roundup, because I think people get a lot of those. So we just send high intent emails where we send one every so often, where there's breaking news or something that's interesting, so that when it lands in people's inboxes, they're like, oh, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then through that as well, we start building tools like the budget planner and stuff. My view with financial interest, sorry, I'm rambling a bit now.
No,
but
it's really interesting.
the view with financial interest is anything that people charge for, can we do it for free, and can we do it better? That's what I challenge Luke to. So it's like, oh, someone's selling a budget tracking tool. I was like, can we buy it, make it 10 times better, and then give it away? And like, how can we make money out of that? That's kind of the railings that we put on ourselves to try and figure out that problem. Because you add massive value to the audience then, which is like a core value of mine, and we still make money,
What's really interesting about what you're saying there is it kind of reminds me a bit of the Hormozy approach with acquisition.com. He's always really kind of, do you follow that?
Yeah.
I think I've heard you mention on the podcast. Yeah. He's very much of kind of a, we do paid stuff for free, and everything that he's looking to do is all about basically just brand building. And the way his company works is obviously acquisition.com is the high ticket, basically the business. How do you see, the thing I've always really loved about your work, and I really mean this, is that there's a lot of chances in the finance space.
Yeah.
And you've always had kind of, for want of a better word, sort of the Martin Lewis approach, where it's like the most important thing is the brand equity, the audience, basically being trusted. How do you see things continuing with financial interest, as far as, let's say you're giving away the very best stuff for free? Where do you see that going?
Isn't it crazy, just first of all, that being a nice person is seen as like unique? Like, what the fuck is wrong with the world?
Yeah, it's true.
What is wrong with everybody?
Yeah, it's true.
But in my eyes, that's the only option. People are like, whoa, it's groundbreaking. I'm like, this should be the only way. I think that trust is the product.
Yeah.
Trust is the product. like if you're an education creator, the trust in you is the thing that you're selling. And as soon as that's gone, you're gone. And it takes a long time to build it, and then it disappears in an instant, and it compounds over time. And the value might not be clear at the start, but over time, you get to this point where you're so trusted that the money just kind of comes to you. And, you know, I earn good money now, and I don't sell anything directly to anyone. And that's kind of crazy to think, but through like affiliate partnerships, and I'm selective over those. I don't work with brokers that I wouldn't use. I honestly don't. There's brokers out there that'll offer me silly money, but I just won't promote them because I think they're bad. Yeah. But, you know, I could sell a course and things like this, but for me, the trust is more valuable long term than that. So let's say I'll give you an example. If we build a course and we give it away, could we get 100,000 people on our list by giving away a top tier course, potentially? We say you can give it away and you can share it with as many people as you want. Yeah. And it will teach you like the basics of how to invest, whatever. If 100,000 people then sign up to an email list, I can send an email to that and a sponsor will insert in that at whatever rate. That will pay good money at that level. And because there's trust in what we send, the open rates are silly. You know, 80% plus. Every email we send gets opened and engaged.
80% open. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Because people trust us. Yeah. When they don't think, oh, they're going to try and sell me some crap, they open it because they got what they got. So the trust is the product and the trust is the value. And it's just like, what a nice place to be at, where it's like you're helping people, you're not trying to shoehorn them or gatekeep value. And at the end of it, they get, you know, you get paid as well. The Martin Lewis model is it shouldn't be, for want for a better word. That guy proved that thing works. He is an affiliate machine, right? Like, let's be
ruthless affiliate machine.
Yeah, let's be honest here. You know, he sold a website for 90 million, not because it was like generating lots of likes. It was generating a lot of money. So he was like the first affiliate player, really, referring to things. But if you look at his affiliate model, any person that he promotes, you have to give them a better deal than anywhere else in the market. And if you want to be emailed out to his 2 million people on his list, you give them a better deal. So anyone who goes through that channel knows they're getting the best deal they can possibly get. And he's got that through the power of the trust. Because he's got 2 million people on an email list because they trust him, he now gets a better deal than the rest of the market. He emails that to that list, and that list trusts that is the best deal. So if he's like, here's the best deals on car insurance, you know it's going to be. You know, so the value and the money has followed the trust in that sense, and it benefits everyone. So, yeah, I see people tapping out for, you know, silly brands and things. I'm like, what are you doing?
I think what you touched upon there is really important, and if I'm being honest, a bit underappreciated in the creator economy, which is the most important thing, is your reputation. Yeah, ultimately. And I think we saw that so much.
Unless you're Logan Paul. That guy's bulletproof, Teflon done.
Yeah, there's the other side of it, isn't there, which is just that, you know, I'm going to put out so much content that it doesn't actually matter because I'm just going to flood you with stuff all the time. But I think for most people, the reputation is paramount. I guess my question for you, though, with that is that there's always a bit of a dichotomy as far as a bit of a sort of a contradiction between business and art, as far as, okay, you know, let's say I want to make the biggest impact. Yeah. That inevitably is going to need money at some point. How do you inform making sort of channel business decisions so that you walk the right line? Because obviously it's easy to say trust is trust is the number one currency, but actually it doesn't pay bills. So how do you get that dichotomy?
I mean, I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I've reached a scale, maybe like we said before about balance and rich people. It's like big channels and trust, you know? Yeah. I get it. The way you do that is you build the channel based on trust initially, and you continue to work a full-time job so that you can pay the bills. I make decisions for the content all the time. At the minute, we're trying to hire a Welsh male choir for a video.
Really?
Yeah, on gold.
Really?
Yeah. Just like, why not?
Why?
Like, I don't know. Why? So, you know, Wales has got a long history with gold. Welsh gold.
I think I do, but only casually. Yeah,
the royal family like Welsh gold,
right?
So I want to make a video about
gold.
Yeah, is gold a good investment? Right. And I thought get there to Wales, talk about the Welsh gold, get a Welsh choir singing gold by Spandau Ballet. I don't know, like some kind of just be a bit silly. Yeah. People are just like, what is going on here? So look out for that one. We'll price that together. But that video is going to cost me £6,000.
And you're going to get copyright striked.
Yeah, I'm going to make no money on it. I'm going to make no money on it. Yeah. Literally no money.
There's just going to be like a 20, 30 second ad for financial interest just to make up.
Please.
I've been spewing my business model and I need to get it done.
But then I can make a video like the best ISA video, which can kind of pay for that.
Yeah.
The thing I struggle with is the most valuable content is the stuff of like how to. Here's a button, click here, move there. The content I want to make is like stuff that's a bit out there because it just keeps me interested. That's probably the dichotomy that I struggle with. And what I'm trying to build now are other channels where when someone goes, how do you do this? I can be like, here's a blog article, here's a video that's like to the point and straight here. Now, you know, ta-da, da, 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 da.
No, but I think what you're saying there is it is interesting because like, and even I know this to do my own stuff is that, you know, it's always that balance between what you find interesting, engaged, which also makes good content. Because I honestly think you can totally tell when a creator's really put their heart and soul into something, got great storytelling, all the rest of it. But that sometimes isn't the thing that gets the hits.
No.
You know,
when people are like, shut up and get on with it. Yeah. I spent 4 weeks on this.
Yeah, exactly.
I hired the Welsh Philharmonic Choir or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, you get that all the time.
Yeah.
But then there's those people that do appreciate it and that makes it worth it. And like, you know, when someone's just like, oh, that was different. I just crave that. I crave that kind of, that was different. There's this desire in me to push the finance niche along a bit. And I'm not there at the minute. And it's so exhausting making those videos that are these kind of creative epics, even though they're not really epic. But you know what I mean?
No,
when I see you doing it as well, when you're trying to instill the story and link it together, it's hard.
Yeah,
and it can't. You after you're done with it, you're kind of like, oh, I can't do another one of them tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to, if I could, the channel would be 3 or 4 of those videos every single month. You know, where they're just all singing, all dancing. But it's too much headspace for me at the minute, so I have to do the other stuff. Hopefully with the blog and the podcast and what I'm planning on that side of the business, the main channel could almost be like a lost leader.
Yeah.
I don't have to care about the money on the main channel, and I can just make content that kind of gets people out their seat. Because I think the hardest thing with finance is everyone's saying the same things. It's just getting people to listen. It's just getting them to go, okay, I get it, and I kind of understood that. And I think entertainment and relatability, whatever that means, are big parts of that. And I think that takes a bit of work, you know, so you're not just going top 5 Vanguard funds.
Yeah,
you know.
So tell me now about the Making Money podcast and how that came about, because, you know, you'd gone, how long was it after you'd gone full time that you'd started doing the podcast? Was it about 6 months or so? It wasn't that short afterwards.
The podcast is, what's the date today? 17th?
Is
it 17th?
Yeah, 17th.
It's
17th
1 year old today.
Is it really?
Yeah. Well, the first episode was published 1 year today, but before that we'd done a load of screen testing and things like that. We do it through a production company called Kindling Media. Right. Same logic. They approached me and said, we'll pay for it, we'll put a producer on it, we'll help you. We've built another podcast already called Secret Leaders. So we know podcasts. I mean, this room, as you see, it's like I haven't got this in my house. No, you know, it's not an easy thing.
They do though. Who's that house in London?
Oh yeah, we filmed the pilot in Ali Abdul's place.
Did you?
Yeah. No way. And then he was like, "Don't come back." Me and Tremaine were just, you know, peed everywhere. I don't know what Tremaine did in the bathroom, but
the chances.
They were just like, get that Northerner out of my house, absolute gobshite. So it was then like Will, who's like the producer, the big producer, because there's 2. He was like, let's just film it at my house. So that's where we do it. And people all the time ask me for tips with houseplants, and I'm like, I've got no idea. It's not my house.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. And so you know, even running a podcast at the scale that is, like that's you know. You've had some really high-profile guests. You had David Meaden on. You know, you've had Raman on, which is obviously an absolute legend of you know, finance. That obviously takes quite a big team. You know, how did, as far as kind of, was that literally kind of plug and play, so to speak, from your side, for you and T? How much interaction did that take as far as focus? Because there'll be a lot of creators watching this and listening to this who, I hope, who will be wondering, you know, how they make that step.
Yeah, don't start the podcast until you've got the main channel down.
Right.
Like don't because it's a distraction.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a big distraction. You know, like unless your podcast is your thing, right? Or because finding guests is hard.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes a lot to arrange schedules and things like this. So just make sure you're sure before you jump into that. But the podcast is probably the thing that people talk to me about the most, even though it's 10 times smaller than the main channel. My uncle listens to the podcast every week. He doesn't watch my channel. So it's the content that resonates with people the most. I think it's the long form unscripted conversations that kind of get people, they just like it more. So it's the most valuable content that I produce from an audience feedback perspective. But without the team, I couldn't do it. So without Ruth, who's our producer, Ruth is the podcast. She finds the guests. She does all the behind the scene work. Yeah, it wasn't plug and play, but they put that team there, and then I come into that and I do research ahead of the day, and we film 4 in a day. It's quite intense,
Right. Wow, that is intense.
Yeah, we just flip out our t-shirts in between.
Do you?
Yeah.
God, you guys have done pretty well to keep the energy levels, because you can't tell. You can't tell that you're
Cocaine's
absolutely
a
knackered.
hell of a drug.
Yeah.
No, it was like 6 coffees deep by like 5 p.m. Yeah,
bet.
as soon as you turn the lights, like stop, it's like you melt. I think there's something about podcasts or conversations like this where it's kind of like maybe it's the front of your brain you're using. You know when you're on autopilot 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You're just going about, and and that's like really light on your brain.
Yeah,
when you're having these conversations, you're very in the room.
Correct.
So if you have 4 of them, it feels like you've run a marathon at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you watch the episodes where it's dark in the background and look at T, the man is on the edge.
Is he?
He's there like, yeah, he's just like yawning and like going like this because he's just dying. Yeah. Someone's talking about like the bond crisis, and Tamane's just there like swaying. Yeah, it's funny.
That's good. I think there's something you said a second ago, which I think is really important, which is about like the quality of the interaction with your audience. And I've always thought that with podcasts as well, because there's something about being in people's ears, whether it's AirPods, whether it's because they're walking the dog, they're doing the dishes or whatever. It also allows you to aggregate such a huge amount of time with somebody. Mm-hmm. When you're designing your content, are you thinking about that at all? Because visual, I think, it has the biggest bang for buck as far as you're seeing someone. You've got visuals, you've got auditory, but there's something very relational about podcasts. Have you thought much about the content types you deliver as far as long form podcast, short form? Have you had any did you do anything intentional with that?
Yeah, I don't touch shorts.
Okay.
I've not done that. I thought it was a bit of a shiny thing that people were chasing, and I think Vine was a real clear warning that's a hard thing to get right, and TikTok's just state funded, basically, isn't it? It's hard to make money out of shorts for everyone involved, but it's not. But it's hard to make them as well. And I think if you want to talk about regulation, I think the regulator should have an issue with someone in a 10-second clip saying you can do this. That's it's not possible. I just thought I can't add value within the 10 seconds, so I won't do it. With the long form podcast, I kind of just thought this is something that I can do I might meet some cool people, and I get to stand on the shoulders of these finance giants in a way. And over time, what the podcast has become is, it feels like every podcast on the planet has just gone towards this like red pill manosphere / pseudo nutrition stuff. Everything is just like
You're not getting on Modern Wisdom, mate.
No,
not after that.
No, I'm not. Yeah, that's me done. Don't need them. But what we found like a little groove in is getting really interesting finance people. Yeah. Like people that you might not like, historians and stuff. That it's just like it's proper finance geeky stuff, right? Yeah. And we might not be massive, but that's okay as long as we can kind of shine a light on finance people in the UK and maybe abroad that people can kind of geek out on, and they're quality guests. They're much smarter than me and T. We got one with Martin Wolf, who's like the chief economist.
I didn't think I knew.
Yeah, God, me and T were just there like, this guy, he's like 80 odd, and he's like, I'm not sharp as I used to be. I'm like, well, you're sharper than me, mate. Like, he was so smart,
Yeah. But the thing is, though, I've always thought one of the big things with your channel and your kind of big USP is how relatable you are. Because it's all well and good being, and to be honest, man, this is the advantage you've got over a lot of financial advisors and why your channel has done so much better than so many financial advisors out there. It's because you're really relatable and good at communicating things in the right way. It's all well and good having the knowledge. Unless you can communicate it to the masses, you're just speaking to a small audience, aren't you?
It's a hard thing to quantify for me because it's just me. I hope people watch me on this and think, oh, he's just the same he is anyway, or to a point. But that's like a hard thing for me to say, I've bottled that or how to bottle that. I don't know. It's kind of, is it an unfair advantage? It's the same thing as what we were saying before about, isn't it surprising that people find it surprising that being a nice person that doesn't scam people is unusual? It's people are like, oh, you're relatable. I'm like, the rest of the world isn't. They're all just there like little robots. I don't know. I know what you're saying, and it's hard when a camera's rolling and the lens is in your eyes to be relatable. And if you go look at my old content, I'm very wooden, and I'm probably still am now, and I'd like to improve. But yeah, I don't know. That's why sometimes you deal with the imposter syndrome, or I do, of like, why me? Why am I the guy that everyone like? Why can I get so many views? When I think other people are making content that's more detailed, more insightful, more sometimes better produced, and people are like, oh, it's because you're relatable, and that's hard for me to sit with at night.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I guess. So go on the Making Money podcast. Where do you see that headed then? Because that's something that someone else is basically got a bit more control than you normally do. Where's that going?
Yeah, I mean, there's discussions at the minute of me taking that control.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're going through that at the minute of what that might look like in terms of me owning that podcast, and then that would become another part of that's Damien, a media empire complete. I guess. Yeah. Main channel podcast and the blog and newsletter would be the arms of the business.
Yeah, I think that's important to reflect on. So if that happens, that means that you'll have your main channel, which is one of the biggest finance channels in the UK. You've got your affiliates, you've got your newsletter, and then on top you're also it will be kind of different legs of a pretty substantial media outlet, for one better way of saying it.
Yeah, I think the main channel doing 1 million views a month.
Yep.
The newsletter has got 20,000 people on it already, and the podcast does about 150 to 200,000 listens a month, so like 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Not big in the content world, but I think probably big in the UK finance space across any platform. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but I think the Financial Times would miss that amount of people if they stopped reading the article. So yeah, try not to think about it too much, mate, because then you're like, bloody hell, it's a lot of people.
Well, I think it's if I'm being honest, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, because I think from purely just a business side, I think if you were to look at, porting that credibility with your audience, because it's all well and good having viewers, but have you got the relationship? And clearly you do have a lot of returning viewers through your audience. If you were to port that and add that to, I don't know, like you say, a Financial Times or all the rest of it, it would cost a lot to pay for that.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. And I think you've got to always be really aware of what's the big sort of secular trends, what are the big waves, because, you mentioned it on the crypto thing you did for the Making Money pod about SMOC insurance. What are the opportunities of our generation? Because it's not probably house prices, no. It's not things like that. And I often think about that. And it's really hard to make the case that it's not, to at least to some extent, within the creator economy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the amount of equity that's been built up as far, just value, for want of a better word, that's been built up with audiences, that is unusual.
Yeah. I think, I struggle to value my own stuff because I'm not from this world, but I reckon if you put it in the hands of like a Financial Times, they would slap a figure of millions on it.
Yeah.
I'm not pulling that out of it because I think the problem is creators are naive. I'm naive. We don't know. We're all out alone in the woods, and I think the corporate machine's turned its eye to creators and gone, these guys can be ripped off. Like if you look at how much an ad slot costs on Coronation Street, 20 grand, 30 grand, whatever.
Yeah.
An ad slot on my channel will be a lot less than that, 10 times less, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
And it's targeted towards a specific audience. Whereas Coronation Street, everyone's gone to boil the kettle and no one knows who's watching it.
100%.
You know, like what's more valuable?
Well, exactly. And I was at an event, so I'm getting the guys on, there's a London thing called the Creator Space, which is all about creators, and it's kind of like a little community of London-based creators. And I was just chatting with some of the guys about sponsorships, and one of the things that's really resoundingly clear is that that's a complete wild west out there as far as creators getting ripped off. You know, as you say, like if you were to take that and, you know, and add in any other kind of area, you'd be paying so much more. And some creators are getting offered 50 quid, some are getting offered $5,000, you know, in the same time. So it's interesting that you say that about that. One of the things that I kind of do think about you, mate, is that I do think you're very strategic. And I think there's no two ways about it. You know, it seems that you've kind of, I was listening to the Canberra podcast with you, and that was about a year or a bit ago. It was in 2023. And your focus was very much on single platform there. It was like, I'm going to be the YouTube guy, I'm going to focus on that. And you are consistent to that. But you are building this kind of empire, for want of a better word, media properties and all the rest of it. How did you upskill in that area?
So I'm still YouTube focused.
Yeah.
I just brought people on board that were help me in the other areas, and I give them, you know, I have oversight in terms of I check all the content and like I'm involved in that. But yeah, it just became very apparent to me that scaling YouTube, you get to a point where you're thinking, moving this from 100,000 views a video to 200,000 views a video is a monumental move. And the way that most people do that is they go more generic, more broad, less valuable is what I would say.
Yeah.
The content becomes like 5 mindset shifts you can make, you know, like very broad so that anyone in the world can watch it and they start talking in dollars.
I've read 40 books. These are the ones.
Yeah. Shout out Toby Newberg. Yeah, Toby Newberg created that sub niche. Yeah.
So just for the sake of the audience watching, there's a finance creator called Toby who you've met. I've not. He's obviously a great guy. He is the OG for that video, the 40 books that everyone's copying.
Yeah, and it's funny when you go on the video, people are like, you copied this off Mark Tilbury or Nisha or Ali Abdullah. It's like, check the dates. I made this. But yeah, I helped him with the thumbnail.
Did you?
So yeah, he made the thumbnail and I was like, the background should be orange. And he put the background as orange and it went, whoop, like that.
Way.
You're crazy. Like, it's basically my video.
Yeah.
No, but
he's just so relatable, not got an ego at all.
But no, it was just like, how like, why am I gonna scale the YouTube channel forever? Is that the goal? And to be honest, like the views after a while, like views are so important, and then after a while they become not very important at all in terms of what they do for the business as a business and the channel. It's kind of like they're just they're not a perfect metric of saying, oh, I double the views, I'll double my earnings. It doesn't work like that. And it just seemed to me of like, why wouldn't I expand left and right instead of trying to climb the mountain ever bigger? Because I don't know how big the UK mountain is, and what I won't do is I won't go more generic, I won't go more broad, I won't decrease the value. I want to sit there and read the monetary policy report and talk to my audience about it. I can't do that to a global audience. It just wouldn't wash. And how big is the finance audience in the UK? I don't know. I'm probably putting the feet in the snow there in terms of testing how big a finance video in the UK can be. So I was just thinking, if I want to continue to grow, I probably need to expand left and right.
Yeah, I think the thing is, though, with that is, I can say this being an advisor, is that, you know, one of the big things that this is kind of one of my big frustrations with the regulation, everything around this, is that, you know, the FCA is always about people have got too much in cash, people have got too much in cash. And then yet it is impossible. It's very, very difficult for people to actually, you know, that there's been new stuff about called the advice guidance boundary, which they've just put out. But the truth of the matter is, financial advice for the masses is failing them. There's just no two ways about it. Because as an advisor, and we're not sat here as advisors kind of being thrilled about that. The cost of regulation is thousands and thousands to kind of just bring on board normal clients because of the amount of work that
you can't work with someone who's got no money.
Exactly.
You can't.
Yeah.
Your incentives don't align with what they need, and that's not your fault. Like you say, the regulation is stifling to the point of, if you haven't got 200 grand plus, it costs me so much money to onboard you because I've got to check you every year. Yeah. So you can have 100 clients max. They have to be high value. You can't have a guy with 50 quid a month because that's one of your 100. You've got 100 slots, you know, that you can fill. I know this from advisors I speak to.
Yeah.
So, and there's only a few thousand advisors or whatever in the UK. There's not many, like in the grand. What that means is that you can service 1 million people total, and they're going to be the highest net worth people out there. And the people that need the help get, every time they ever look at investing, get told, you could lose all your money, panic, run away, don't touch that crap. Like that's the kind of tone. And I think that's wrong. And the regulators will hate me for saying that. But I think they could do a better job of going, yes, it's risky, but it's also really good for you if you do it in a certain way, you know, long term.
I think the biggest risk with investing is not doing it, is the truth.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and we're really losing people on the nuances of those conversations. There's no two ways about it. But that actually kind of leads me on to a question I've got for you, which is about what's the long-term focus with what you're doing, because you're clearly very driven, and I get a sense of purpose from you. Have you articulated that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like there's moments where it's like I'm in number 10 and it's like, how the hell have I ended up here? And that kind of reframes you at that point to think, okay, this could be bigger than you thought it could be. Like 2 years ago, it was just me in my spare bedroom, and the goal would have been, can I get 400,000, 500,000 new people in the UK investing, and can they go tell their friends? And the ripple effect of that is millions of people. And that's amazing, you know, and their kids, and they will just be on a better life path. And when I die, I can go, I did something, I left the world a better place. There'll be thousands of people out there now that have started because I made a video. That was the goal. Then when I sat in number 10, it was like, can that be millions? Can I and other people in my space make the UK more like America, where everyone participates, or they participate much more actively in equities? Even in Europe, they participate more in equities than we do in the UK.
It's seen as a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, even in Spain, you know, and like they participate more than we do, and they have worse structures for investing than we do. We have like the most generous, tax-efficient accounts on the planet, and no one uses them. Can I change that? Can I can I convince the UK population that the pension system in its current format in terms of state pension is not benefiting anyone? And can I get popular support for that to be changed? I don't know. I don't want to sound like, there's so many smarter people than me that have tried to crack that problem. But it seems to me when I speak to politicians that the reason they don't tackle these things is because they think people don't care. Yeah. I think they're wrong. I think people do care, but they kind of need to be shown. And maybe I can be the megaphone of the people in that sense, for them to go, look, we do care about these things, and we would listen to reform if it was sensible from people like yourselves and people in the know, you know.
Well, I think one of the big things which I think is absolutely crazy is and you've mentioned this loads on your channel, so credit to you for giving it a voice, is the lifestyle and around pensions. Yeah. Basically, I would love to know, and apparently some think tank came out and thought that, people have got to go into, so just for the purpose of the audience, what basically happens is that if you're invested in a Nest scheme or some other pensions.
Nest is particularly bad.
Yeah, you're in what's called a foundational stage, where you're putting effectively low risk assets for the first 3 to 5 years, I think, from memory. On the basis that apparently, because those assets are going to go up and down less, you're less likely to leave the scheme. The problem is that they're not telling you the full picture, which is that actually for a younger person, volatility, the ups and downs along the way for someone in a pension is hypothetical. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any difference. You can't touch it for 40 years. Mm. And the real world consequences of that, especially with auto-enrollment, which is basically people getting automatically enrolled into pension schemes, is that people are losing out hugely. And I think someone like yourself or other people, just getting that changed so that it should be 100% equity as opposed to nonsense around a foundational scheme, I think that would make a marked difference. But one thing actually I'll be interested to ask you about is, you do a very good job about making finance engaging. Do you think we'll ever make a big dent on getting people engaged with the finances? Because I go back and forth on this.
It's kind of crazy that they're not. But I think people are engaged, but they're engaged at the wrong end of the scale. They're engaged at like the budgeting and saving and the kind of the cash. I think there's been some big watershed moments recently that have made people realise that their views on money might be slightly wrong. Inflation, I think, was one of them. Like the interest rate things, and people, it happens once every 20, 30 years, but I think it takes that to wake that current generation up to the fact that, like your house isn't always an asset when the interest rate flips on you and you're in a position where your mortgage doubles. You start to look at your house slightly differently then. It's like, oh God, this thing could actually be bad for me. And I think there's been a few kind of watershed moments in the same way that this whole thing of like a career is more safe than being self-employed was thrown out the window as soon as COVID happened and people realised my job was not safe. Everyone who worked in entertainment and like in bars, they soon realised that sector was not safe, So I think that you have those moments that wake people up. I can only do so much, and I think there's like generational things. You spoke before when you said what got our parents here won't be what gets us there, and they will die on the hill of bricks and mortar are the best thing you could possibly ever have because they were for them. And you can't begrudge them for that. In the same way, people coming out of, I can't remember, the silent generation coming out of
World War II.
Yeah, the Great Depression and things like this. They hated investing because they saw. I don't know if that's the right name for the generation, but that generation that went through the Great Depression hated investing because they saw people decimated from it. And it's the
Morgan Housel no one's crazy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I do think that I have much more hope for the younger generations because I think they need to be. They don't have a choice. You can't stumble your way to retirement and be like, oh, there's a DB pension there that's carrying me, and the state pension's actually quite nice as well. I think there's a necessity that breeds change. It's kind of like a bad thing that the younger generations, it's all on them, but I think that will be good for them in terms of participation.
Yeah, and I think going back to kind of secular trends and waves, I think it speaks to a lot of the work that you're doing, if I'm being honest, because the reality is people are going to have to, learn these things, and I think that positions you really well. I think you mentioned on Calum's podcast about another venture as part of Damo Industries, which is going in and doing workplace schemes. Talk me through that. So
this is why I would want to take over the podcast.
Okay.
Because the podcast costs a lot. Yeah. But not as much as a Welsh choir, but like it costs a fair bit.
1/3 of Welsh choir.
Yeah, it's because we want to get them up a mountain. They're not happy about that, like make them climb a mountain. But anyway, I have this kind of value set of, I've alluded to it, of how can I give the content to the people who need it for free? How can the people who need the 0 to 1 movement get the information without paying for it? The whole thing of like, how can we build the budget tool that people charge 20 quid for and give it away? And how can I make money for the business? Well, I could go into businesses and charge the owner of the business to give content and present and work in accordance with financial advisors to provide support for staff. That means that they then understand their own basic personal finances and improve the participation of the work-based scheme. Get those 10% of people who opt out back in, things like this, these kind of things that are life-changing for people. And that way then the end user, the person in the seat, they get it for free, but the company pays for it. And what we think is a growing trend is realization that financial well-being outside of work extends into the workplace, and that people with poor finances are poor performers in the sense of they're stressed, they make bad decisions, they tend to leave work because they think, oh, I need another job, I need more money. And as you know, working in financial advice, more money's never really the answer in a lot of cases.
No.
What we mean by that is you give people more money, and if they've got bad money habits, they kind of just
disappears.
It just disappears as well. So we think that we can provide value to the employer and also to the staff. So it's kind of like a win-win-win in that sense. And I reach more people that might not watch me yap away on YouTube.
Nice. So I've put together this kind of 4-day kind of creator finance masterclass, which is kind of just very much for creators, sort of the basics. And one of the things I talk about in there is about being asset agnostic, which is that because the way the traditional finance industry is set up, it's set up to really prioritize stocks and shares, financial assets and all the rest of it. And that's true because of compounding and all the rest of it. That will get you to wealth slowly. But the whole concept behind asset agnostic is that actually you are the biggest wealth creator of all. And when you look at somebody, the single biggest driver of future wealth is income. From your side, without going anything too personal, how did you manage the sort of the business and the personal assets? How did you kind of manage that? Because it's a really risky thing becoming a full-time creator, some would argue, as far as certainly giving up of a job. How did you create that sort of barbell strategy between protecting against disaster and, you know, maximizing the upside?
Yeah, so it took me a long while to shift out of the mentality of, you know, I think you work full-time, you kind of like, oh, is this it? Is this what I do? I just work full time? And then you discover investing and you think, oh, if I put money into an ISA and to a pension, then I will have a lot of money at the end. And that becomes an obsession. And it was kind of like everything I work for, I put it into that. And then there was this shift where I had to realize, actually, Damien, you can generate 9% there, maybe, or you could generate 200% here. You should be all here. But there's so much risk here that, like, throwing it all back in, buying a podcast, starting a newsletter, these kind of things where it's like you generate money and then you put it back in. There's this desire to be like, I just want to sit on my pile of gold and like stack the chips. So, you know, I practice good financial habits in the sense of I put as much money into my SIP as I possibly can, and I put as much money into my ISA as I can. I fill my ISA every year because I know that if that goes wrong, that's the safety net. And if in 5 years' time it all goes tits up and I've got nothing to show for it, but I've filled my ISA for 5 years and I've put a load into my pension, well, I'm in a better place than when I started. Do you know what I mean? And I think this is why I agreed to do this, and I think you'll do so well, is because creators tend to be poor with their finances, or they don't understand it. And I think that they're like footballers. I think there's a lot of, I'm lucky I'm a personal finance creator.
Which is why I want you on.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of creators out there that will earn a lot of money quickly, buy a Lambo, blow it all, and then in 3 years' time be like, oh my God, what's happened? What do I do now? You know, and that's a sad state to be. I think a little bit of careful planning can set you up for life. And even if it's not, you never work again, it's just that money will compound over the next 30 years that you've tucked away efficiently, that when you get to retirement, you'll be like, that was a really good part of my life that I did some good with, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing kind of touch on that is there's something that Ollie mentioned, you know, Ollie, who I think you're going to
I've seen tomorrow,
Yeah, okay. It was on Cam's podcast. He talks about sort of the benevolent business model, and without going too much, because I know there are a lot of creators who maybe don't add enormous amount of value, but I think educational creators, I do genuinely think they operate on a business model which does a lot of good, which is, you know, you have a mass audience which you educate typically for free. You then build that audience, and through other channels, there tends to be other revenue sources. But because of that, if you are going to do something like that, and it's something that we've touched upon as well, you kind of have a responsibility to become financially secure.
Yeah, you have a duty to.
100%.
Yeah, I said this on another podcast and someone was like, that's a weird thing to say. But it's like you have a duty to earn money so that you can continue to teach people for free. If me being in this seat every month gets 1,000 people to start investing, that's a big movement. I should sit in that seat as long as I possibly can and continue to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's a social good at the end of the day.
Hey, just very quickly, if you are enjoying this episode and you'd like to find out more about how to go from being a creator to financially independent, then please sign up to my Creator Finance Masterclass. It's a 4-day, completely free email course on the key lessons on what real wealth is, how to build it and maintain it. So you can either check out the description here to sign up or go to www.creatorfinance.co.uk. Thanks.
And I do think education creators, sometimes they look down on because it's like they're not entertainment creators who are like the big, sexy, glamorous ones, you know. But I think education creators, they're the people doing stuff in the world. You know, education creators, entertainment really are just extracting attention, like mining it like oil, aren't they? Yeah, just sucking life force out of people. And you might be like, oh, that was nice, but an education one, they put the phone down and they turn around and they go and implement that, and their life changes. I think that's why I love education creators more.
I think also, as far as kind of going back to the Martin, those sort of long-term elements of it, is that, you know, it reminds me of the Yes Theory course. You know, Yes Theory, they were kind of a huge education, and they blew up in their face, didn't it? Yeah, totally blew up in their face. Yeah, but basically, which I think is a bit overplayed. I think they just had a very vocal audience that, for whatever reason, weren't comfortable with what they were putting forward. But I think that's the challenge as well. That when you're all about entertainment, it's as you say, because you're not necessarily educating the audience, it's very difficult to line up things that can be monetized.
The people who are moaning aren't the people buying, first of all. And I want to be clear, I sit here and say I give a lot of stuff away for free. I don't think you should be scared to charge for things, and I don't think it's wrong to charge for things. Quote Hermosi, people pay for speed.
Yes.
You might be able to go, I will tell you all about investing over the next 50 videos, and you can go through my back catalogue and you can figure it all out for free. Or if you want, if you got the bug and in 2 hours you just want it 0 to 1, it's 200 quid. And like, you know, that's fine. What I would say is to creators that are listening to this is protect yourself from negativity, in the sense of people who are toxic narratives will come about in comment sections. About 4% of people comment, right? So 4% of the total audience. They are not reflective of the views of your overall audience, but they'll make you feel like shit. So find ways to sell in private, build a list, build a newsletter, email people that way. Don't go out and put a Yes Theory video of like, we're launching a course, because it's always going to be toxic, because there's a certain kind of person who just wants to beat down on creators for making a bit of money. No one's forcing people to buy it. I've got nothing against it. I just enjoy the challenge of, can we make this free? And can we make money out of that still? When people are super niche, like, you know, you've got a real high skill set and your audience is niche, you can't give that away. You know, you're a financial advisor, you can go charge people in other areas. My advice to creators is look to protect yourself from those narratives, because what happens is then, if you've got like 100 people going, oh, he's a course selling scammer, sellout, someone might stumble across that and be like, oh, I feel like that now. You know, yeah, I agree. Whereas in private, they get an email going, here's a load of value, and by the way, I do have a course if you want it. They might be like, oh, you know what, I think I'll take that because I like this guy. You know, you see how these narratives form online, and the audience goes with them sometimes. And I think creators should just protect themselves around that. And I think that's what Yes Theory's mistake was. I think, you know, Ali's had some backlash about his course, and I think it's just because he heavily publicises it. I don't think he cares. I think he's like, whatever. But you know, the more you ram it down people's throats, or the more public you go, the more pushback you're going to get. So maybe build an email list.
Yeah, I also think a bit of perspective is always key, because at the end of the day, you know, if an audience is getting a lot of free content and so forth, then there's got to be an understanding that certainly if a creator's full time, they need to make money somewhere. They've got to pay for things as well. I
don't think people understand that, and I think there's a certain part of the audience that think everything should be free.
Screw those guys.
Yeah, I also think it's about positioning. You know, like, I think there's too many people who've read a bit of Russell Brunson and things like this, or whatever his name is, and have watched too many Iman Gadzhi videos, and everything is going like, you're going to die poor alone, you virgin, if you don't buy my course. Do you know what I mean? And people are like,
that's
Jesus.
Going in a shop.
Yeah, people are just like, Jesus. Whereas if you go, look, everything I'm about to tell you, you can find for free online. I've just condensed it down into a super, really easy to use format. There's a certain kind of person that'll pay for that. Yeah. And I think you position it like, don't try and trick people in. It's like that anti kind of funnel in that sense, you know?
I think a lot of people like the anti-sale. If I'm being honest, it's always been the way I've operated in financial advice. I've always been really kind of, work with me if you like, don't if you don't want to, and it's always really worked for me. You know, I think
because your product's good, you know that what you do is good.
Hopefully, yeah. So there'll be a lot of creators who kind of watch you and have seen your success. I know this because I was at an event on Monday, and I mentioned there are quite a few people looking up to kind of what you do.
I live I live up north in Southport, and I just think no one knows who I am. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did I tell you that I used to work for a hotel company? We were near like the Prince of Wales in Southport.
Yeah.
I used to work for that hotel company.
You also knew Tommy B, didn't you?
Oh, we'll chat about
Tommy
this later.
Bizzle.
I need to speak with him again. I've not spoken for ages.
Yeah.
We'll chat about this later.
He's like a friend of mine who's like a childhood friend of yours, right?
Yeah, really. He's one of my best mates in childhood.
Yeah. But no, I'm not in London, so I'm not part of the feels. Sure. You know, I feel like I'm quite isolated. So when I hear that people are talking about me and like dissecting what I do, it's kind of crazy to me. Well, if you see the reality of me in my joggers, just on my treadmill, like just
20 minutes late from Avanti.
Yeah, 20 minutes late from Avanti. Yeah.
So the question was going to be,
sorry.
What would your advice be to them? Like, so you got someone who's maybe got a bit of traction online.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe your path. I know you worked really hard to achieve that, so I don't want to underplay that, but you did have quite a rapid ascendancy. Really, things went really well. What if you were to give advice to someone who's maybe starting to do well, based on what's happened with you? What would your main advice be to them as far as the journey?
So keep your feet on the ground and don't take it for granted. It's easy come, easy go with that sense, and don't be distracted by the shiny things. So I think it's like, do the inputs that drive the outputs, as they say. If you've been making videos and you've started to get a bit of traction, you're going to start getting all sorts of emails that are like really enticing. Say no and just keep making videos, because the emails will keep coming. I'll give you an example. I recently turned down number 10 again. They emailed me like, do you want to come down again? No, thanks. I want to stay in my bedroom and make some videos. I'd rather be with you, mate, than Rishi Sunak.
Oh, man, that's getting cut up.
But what I mean is, I've done that and I've got the value for myself, and it doesn't really serve me to go there. It's just like an ego stroke, and it doesn't drive the output that I want, which is, more content, more views. I would also say to people, try and be holistic in your content so that you don't hem yourself into success. I think most people they find one format that works and then they rinse it to death, and then what they become is that, and it becomes very stale very quick. I have a few moments throughout my creator journey where there was pieces of content that did really well, and I could have just lent into that. I purposely went the other way. So crypto tax. I did a video where
it was really successful.
Yeah, it blew up. I didn't make another one until like a few weeks later and months later. The Richer Than You Think video, which was like my biggest ever video, where it's like, people call it the mountain video. It's where I talk about,
Yeah, it's the one that you almost did a Toby on that one. You get a lot of people copying that.
Yeah. That had like a 50% US audience.
Right.
I was like, nope, don't want that. Like, we won't be making that again. Like that kind of style for a bit, because I want a UK audience. That's what I want. So I purposely try and have these buckets of content that I cycle through, behavioural, economics, and UK like macro and micro kind of like news, and investing for beginners. And just try not to go too down the rabbit hole in one piece of content. I see people, they make a piece that goes viral and then they make 1,000 of those, and then they never escape that. They're trapped in that area. And then just be yourself, whatever that is. Like, be relatable. Be a legend. just be relatable. Just be normal.
Be normal. Be nice.
Yeah.
It is sad that it is kind of the exception, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be normal. Be nice.
Everyone I meet is like, oh, like I feel like I can trust you. I'm like, why do you feel like you can't trust anyone else? Is the bigger question.
Well, I think in fairness, you do, because I think you're being a bit unfair to yourself there, because you do have a ruthless long-term focus.
Yeah.
And I think that's it in a nutshell, really. It's the fact that you're just not willing to take the shortcuts. And to be honest as well, kind of similar to footballs and all the rest of it, when you're doing well in the creator economy, you're going to get big figure. I'm sure you've turned down big figure stuff from people you wouldn't want to work with.
Oh, mate.
Really?
Yeah, just like crazy offers of like life-changing amounts of money. Or hearing like a small creator who's like, they're earning $100,000 a month, and you're like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
What? Oh no! And I'm there, on my mountain with my Welsh choir, just like
tea in his crypto fund.
Yeah. But for me, it's like sleeping at night.
Yeah.
It's like, and Ali Abdul can be sponsored by a broker, or Tom Brady can be sponsored by FTX, and it go wrong, and he'd be okay because he doesn't sit there going, I'm a finance guy. Graham Stephan and Andre Jick take a hit permanently for that because they are finance guys. Graham not so much, but Andre has. And I have to take that position seriously. It's like the blessing and the curse, isn't it? I can't sell out because I have way more influence over individual decisions than, like if Barry Chuckle is on the advert or whatever. That's the first guy that came to my head. I don't know why.
I love that about that. Nice, mate.
But do you know what I mean? I need to be able to sleep at night. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why would I say, I say it all the time, you could offer me 100 million to promote something that is rubbish. I'm not doing it. It's just not worth it to me. I value my own ability as well, like long term. I think that I can create that value helping people. My dad was an arsehole. He passed away when I was 13, but he wasn't a nice bloke. Let's put it that way. He wasn't in my life, but he wasn't a nice bloke. And he thought that getting money was you take it from people, you extract it from them. And he did that all over his life, and it ultimately led to his demise. I maybe have this thing inside of me where I think that I can be the opposite of that, because I'm like my dad in the sense of everyone tells me, oh, you're obsessed with money just like your dad, you're just like your dad. And I know my mum's biggest fear was that I would end up just like my dad. And there was a point in my life, I had my son at the exact same age as he had me. He ran away. I didn't, because I tried to take the opposite route to all the decisions, because I was like, I can be like him, but I can be the absolute opposite of him. And now what I want to do is I want to show myself and my family, maybe, I don't know. There's something in me that thinks I can generate loads of value for myself whilst providing lots of value, giving, not taking. So maybe that's where it all kind of comes from, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it does, man. And it's another thing that kind of, I think what's really clear is when you've got creators that have purpose. And I think you clearly do, without going too sort of fancy about it. I think that's a really obvious thing for you, which is great. And in the creator wealth, I'm going to plug the masterclass again. In the creator wealth pyramid bit, there's a bit at the top where I think almost the natural progression for a creator on the journey is philanthropy, as in trying to do stuff. Now, that's not to say that every creator has to do that, but you can see that in loads of different creator journeys. There's a girl called Chrissy Cheller who started doing stuff in schools and all the rest of it. And I think it is almost like a natural progression, especially for educational creators, because you've spent so long teaching people and you've got this large audience and you've seen sort of the, you've done episodes on this, what about money makes you happy? So much, a large amount is actually giving.
Giving, yeah.
And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I think, you talk about philanthropy, if I said that right. I think that I can be philanthropic through the channel and still earn money.
Yeah.
I think I can do lots of good, and hopefully we can get the business to a point where we're going into businesses and helping lots of people, and then we use that money to provide education into schools, because then hopefully the next generation doesn't need me, and I can stop anyone else trying to take my place.
So who do you look up to in the creator economy?
I look up to anyone who week in, week out makes a video and no one's watching. I stumble across these creators and I'm like, you inspire me to keep going, because it's really easy to make content when you've got a big audience. Like, you kind of have to, and it's worth it. It's that grind. Toby, who we mentioned before, made 3 videos a week for like 7-8 months to no one.
Didn't he?
He quit his job. All in.
Did he go all in?
Yeah, all in.
Oh my God.
What a legend. Sasha did the same.
Yeah, I noticed Toby was putting out serious content.
Yeah, he's putting out a lot. So I kind of respect that, and it kind of grounds me and lets me know that there's always someone behind me. I was joking when I said close off the, pull up the drawbridge so no one else can take my spot. But, in reality, that's always in the back of my mind. There's always someone round the corner.
Of course.
So I kind of look up to that. And then, like Ollie, who
Ollie's great.
Yeah, meeting tomorrow. I think he it's not fair to call him a creator. He's a businessman, right?
I think he's going to get more and more traction. But he's someone that I started getting into his stuff, and I was like, oh, you're the real deal.
Well, if you look at his language channel,
storybook.
This is a big channel.
Yeah,
so he's kind of, but yeah, on his he speaks about it in a really interesting way. But then I like creatives. Like, what content do I watch myself? I watch a lot of talk sport, chat about football. I don't watch much finance content.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you find yourself influenced by, if you think about like the education people, there's a lot of Paddy Galloways and all the rest of it who are all about the optimization. Do you take any influence to those guys, or?
I kind of like, I don't like that whole systems and optimization.
I thought that was going to be your answer.
And retention editing and dragging people through it. I don't like that. And I think we're seeing a shift away from it. Sam Sulik, who's that gym guy, he's really interesting. 2-hour-long videos just rambling away. I think we move through phases. I think systems are the opposite of relatability, aren't they? You know, so if I'm trying to bottle relatability as a product or as a thing that I offer, having systems in place is the complete opposite of that. It makes it feel not relatable, in the sense of, I think a lot of content on YouTube becomes very samey. I watch creators and I'm like, oh, you've clearly watched that person, or I can tell anyone who's been through the Ali Abdul kind of course thing, they've got like a style and a type of content, nothing wrong with it, but I think if you want to break out and be the person in a niche, you've got to be individual. I think systems that you take from other people are going to prevent that. I might be wrong, and people will be like, why do you spend 4 hours picking songs, Damien? But, you know.
Why is this Welsh choir here?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I think we're pretty much wrapping up, but I'll do my last kind of question here. It's the more money than SENSEI point. I don't know why I put this on. This is going to get me cancelled. So this is the fun part of the segment where creative people asking what people under and over invest into in the creator economy. Let's see if we can get the sound. One sec. Oh, I'm offline. Never mind.
Because we're in a basement.
I'm in a basement.
You can add it in post.
I'll add it in
What
post.
is the sound? Like a whoosh, whoosh.
Yeah.
Whoosh.
It's like, I'm pretty sure it's going to get cancelled.
More money than SENSEI.
Yeah. Let's see if I've got it here. No. I'll try it for one more second then. Or... Mate, that's more underwhelming than your Welsh choir. All right, fine. So basically, what do you think creators waste money on?
Courses on how to be good at YouTube.
What do you think they don't spend enough money on?
They don't spend. I mean, if we say time is money, they don't spend enough time on their content, in the sense of what we were just saying. They look to systemize and optimize. How can I make 6 pieces of content a week that are chop up into 5,000 shorts and all of this and rattle it out all over the place? I think that worked for some, but I think spend time on your script, spend time in it, you know, and make it something unique. But if you want to talk about actual money, I say spend less money. I got to like 70,000 subscribers on an iPhone in my loft. It was the best time I was having on the channel as well, in a way. You don't need to buy 20 grand's worth of camera gear. You don't.
Final question. One of the big things that I think is a bit of a kind of a scammy thing that you see a lot online is the difference between revenue and profit. As far as, you know, loads of people will be like, oh, I'm making 10 grand a month. And then they'll neglect to mention that they've hired 2 people and all the rest of it. How, when it's kind of managing margins from your side and your business, how do you think about that?
Yeah, there's points where this year, so I went from being a solo creator to now there's 9 people that are involved in the business in some way. A lot of them are contractors and things like this. But yeah, there was a point where I was earning a lot more money and making less. And I was like, why have I done this? I should just tell everyone to go home. But then you kind of got to speculate to accumulate, haven't you? Keep an eye on the costs though and keep them lean. Creator businesses don't need to be really, really expensive. People are expensive. That's the thing. And that's a hard balance to find good people. That's why I do the equity shares. So that keeps my costs down. Ultimately, it'll end up costing me a lot.
Yeah.
If financial interest generates 5 million a year, it's going to cost me 2.5 million a year. Like, you know, if that's where it goes, and I might be sat there going, God damn, I could have this guy for 50 grand a year. But at the initial point, the risk is really low, you know, and it allows me to bring in someone world class. They're incentivized in the same way that I am. He's working right now. He's not thinking Damien's in London chatting crap. He's like in it. That's how I've managed my costs and scaling. But yeah, it's like views, mate. The amount of people who look at views and go, oh, he's getting 1 million views a video. And I'm thinking, I can't see what the business is here. There's plenty of creators like that people hold up and listen to and champion. But then I can't see how they'd be making much money. You know, I'll give you a few offline. And now I know because of you that creators naturally listen to me. I don't want to give you some, but yeah, views aren't all the be all and end all. Revenue isn't the be all and end all. It's kind of the take home and the value that you leave in people's lives.
It's a great point. That's where we're going to end it, man. Thanks so much for your time.
No worries. Let's get beer.
Yeah. Let's do it. Great.
Hey, thanks for watching. So I really enjoyed that episode with Damien. One of the things that Damien mentioned to me after filming is the concept that he mentioned about doing everything for free. He said that only really works if you have an audience of a certain size, so kind of a bigger audience. In fact, when we were kind of chatting about it, there were loads of great moments in this from the conversations, insights that I thought were really interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a follow-up podcast or video where I go over the 5 key learnings that I've taken from it. Anyway, finally, I just want to say that as a regulated individual, it's only right that I'm straight talking with my audience. I want to give you the tools to educate yourself about how to manage your personal finances and become financially free. That said, it's important to know that anything through this channel and content is educational and informational only. It is never to be seen as specific financial advice to you. I don't know your unique circumstances, so any generalizations mentioned may not be right for you. Views stated on this podcast and elsewhere are individual. If investing is mentioned, with investing your capital is at risk, past performance is no guarantee of future results, so if you are making any key financial decisions, please do seek professional advice catered to you. Thanks so much for watching and listening.